For decades, Turkey was the one Middle Eastern Muslim nation to sustain a democracy. There's a good reason for that. Its founder, Mustafa Ataturk, insisted that it must be a secular nation. By the time the Ottoman Empire disintegrated, the people of Turkey were tired of the imam's stifling hold on their lives. They were ready for a secular nation. They made it a part of their constitution. All that changed with Recep Tayyip Erdogan. As a member of the Islamist Welfare Party, he became mayor of Istanbul in 1994. 4 years later, the courts declared Erdogan's welfare party violated the secular constitution. Erdogan was sent to prison in 1997 for inciting violence and religious hatred. By 2001, Erdogan seemed to have a change. He established the Justice and Development Party, known by the initials AKP. The new party was Muslim, but supposedly moderate. It portrayed itself as pro-American. It advocated membership in the European Union. It claimed to support the secular principles of Turkey's constitution. Erdogan became prime minister in 2003 and president in 2014. In his 2012 book, Obama and the Middle East, Fawaz Gerges wrote, "Perhaps Obama's greatest political achievement in the Middle East lay in nourishing an exceptionally close strategic relationship with Turkey and its outspoken, charismatic Prime Minister, Recep Tayyip Erdogan." From the outset, Obama recognized Turkey's pivotal role in the neighborhood as a force for moderation and stability. Apparently, Barack Obama misjudged Erdogan. He actually turned out to be anything but a force for moderation and stability. Instead, he has become an exporter of terror. At home, Erdogan has crushed his opposition, destroyed any semblance of dissent, and wrecked Turkey's secular constitution. The country is now Islamist. It remains a member of NATO despite violating key NATO provisions on human rights. Alex Alexiev is chairman of the Center for Balkan and Black Sea Studies. Writing for American Thinker, he said, "Turkey, under Recep Tayyip Erdogan, has long ago given up even the pretense of being a democratic polity and is openly pursuing policies detrimental to democracy, the rule of law, and Western security considerations. In short, Turkey has become an Islamist dictatorship every bit as inimical to Western interests as Iran. In 1924, Ataturk instituted an organization called the Directorate of Religious Affairs, or Diyanet. He used the directorates to train imams specifically to prevent the radicalization of Turkish Islam. Erdogan has reversed that. He has used the Diyanet to build a core of diehard Muslim clergy loyal to him. He upped the school's budgets and swelled their ranks. Alexiev writes, by 2015, there were 1,961 Imam Hatip schools with more than 1.2 million students and budget of $2 billion. There are 85,000 mosques in Turkey. Why do they need 1.2 million potential imams? Erdogan wants reliable fundamentalists, not just in the mosque, but the military and throughout the government. He also wants to build a European invasion army. He's training these young men for work in other lands, especially Europe and the Balkans. Alexiev continues, Few people realize that after the relative retreat of Saudi effort to finance radical Islamic projects in the West, Turkey is increasingly the key actor funding the radicalization of European Muslims. The Diyanet has already funded hundreds of mosques in Europe, especially Germany. It's not an accident that in the country of Turkey itself, Erdogan's recent radical constitutional reforms barely passed in a public vote. But for Turkish citizens living outside the country, the reforms won in a landslide. Turkey is sending imams all over Europe. According to Alexiev, these imams do not speak the local language and barely know the societies in which they find themselves, nor are they encouraged to get to know them. The one mantra that Turkish officials repeat ad nauseum is that assimilation is wrong, or, as Erdogan put it himself, a crime against humanity. And it may be working. Several recent studies have shown that third-generation Turks in Germany are no better integrated than those of the first. The Diyanet also works closely with Turkish espionage agencies throughout Europe. Their mosques and imams facilitate a fifth column in Europe that, in the end, may make ISIS seem like small potatoes. In October, Lebanon's prime minister announced a coalition government with the notorious terror group Hezbollah. Prime Minister Saad Hariri said, "We have put aside differences to serve the country." Ironically, Hariri's father, Rafik Hariri, was murdered by Hezbollah operatives in a 2005 car bombing. But his son desperately needed to appease Hezbollah in order to remain in power. Financed by Iran, Hezbollah has deep pockets. Part of that is due to the Obama nuclear deal that has Iran rolling in cash. Hezbollah gives financial and medical aid to hundreds of thousands of Lebanese. It has a greater military capability than the nation itself. The group's missile arsenal is larger than that of any NATO country except the United States. Lebanese President Michel Aoun told an Egyptian television station, "Hezbollah weapons are not contradictory to the state, but are an essential part of defending the country." But last week, Prime Minister Hariri had had enough. With his life under threat, he resigned. Speaking from an undisclosed location in Saudi Arabia, he said, "I have sensed what is being plotted covertly to target my life." He also had hard things to say about Iran's involvement in Lebanon. "I point very clearly to Iran, which spreads destruction and strife wherever it is, and witness to its interventions in the internal matters of the Arab countries, in Lebanon and Syria and Bahrain and Yemen." Hariri's turnabout shows again that you cannot appease Muslim terror groups. They always want more. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu told the BBC,
he said basically Hezbollah took over, which means Iran took over. And I think this is a wake-up call for everyone. It says what the Middle East is really experiencing. It's experiencing the attempt of Iran to conquer the Middle East, to dominate it and subjugate it. And I think when Israelis and Arabs, and it's all the Arabs and the Israelis, agree on one thing, people should pay attention. We should stop this Iranian takeover.
In 2006, Israel and Hezbollah fought a 34-day war. It ended with UN Security Council Resolution 1701. All the parties agreed to it: the Lebanese cabinet, Hezbollah's strongman leader, and the Israeli Knesset. Among other things, that resolution provided for the disarmament of all armed groups in Lebanon. There will be no weapons or authority in Lebanon other than that of the Lebanese state. That should have been the end of an armed Hezbollah, but it wasn't. Since that time, their military might has exploded. A few days ago, Hezbollah said that the Israeli Prime Minister is the one pushing the region toward war. The only surprising thing about that claim is that some people will believe it. Hezbollah leader Hassan Nasrallah said the Israeli government does not have a correct assessment of where this war will lead it if they ignite it. He said Jews who immigrated to Israel should leave and return to the countries from which they came, so they are not fuel for any war that the idiotic Netanyahu government takes them to. Earlier this year, the Hezbollah leader said that a future war with Israel would draw fighters from Iran, Iraq, Afghanistan, Yemen, and Pakistan. He also said it would take place inside Israel. In late October, the U.S. House of Representatives voted for new sanctions against Hezbollah and anyone that helps Hezbollah. The U.S., the Arab League, Japan, Canada, Australia, and several other nations have designated the entire Hezbollah organization as a terrorist group. The U.S. House has also passed a resolution urging the European Union to make a similar designation. But despite Lebanon's new openness about its partnership with Hezbollah, the United States just sold Lebanon 2 A-29 light attack aircraft. These are small single-engine turboprops. They're not likely to make a huge difference in future war with Israel. But why sell anything to them? I believe many at the State Department are living in a dream world where Lebanon is still its own country. But, in effect, Lebanon is now a wholly owned subsidiary of Hezbollah. Last week, I reported on the resignation of Lebanon's Prime Minister Saad Hariri as head of government. He said he feared assassination. He said he feared for his family. He let the world know about his anger at the terrorist group Hezbollah. He made his announcement in Saudi Arabia as he seemed to be going into hiding. Hezbollah and others then claimed that Saudi Arabia kidnapped the prime minister and is holding him against his will. Meanwhile, Saudi Arabia claimed that Lebanon recently committed an act of war against their nation. Claims of kidnapping a prime minister on one side and an act of war on the other have put the region on a hair trigger. What the Saudis call an act of war began when Yemen launched a ballistic missile toward the Saudi capital of Riyadh. The Saudi military intercepted it and shot it down. The Houthis almost certainly fired the missile from Yemen. The Houthis are a Shiite Muslim group aligned with Shiite Iran and Shiite Hezbollah. Saudi Arabia is the leading Sunni Muslim nation in the region. The real battle in this conflict is between the Sunnis and the Shiites. Lebanon now openly confirms that Hezbollah is a partner in the government. Since Hezbollah is allied with the Houthis in Yemen, the Saudis decided that it means that Lebanon itself committed an act of war against Saudi Arabia. These events have everyone in the region on edge. You may be wondering why the Saudis put the blame on Lebanon and not on Hezbollah or Iran. To understand, we have to look at the makeup of the Lebanese population. Lebanon was a largely Christian nation until its civil war in the 1970s and 80s. Even today, the population is 54% Muslim and 40% Christian. The Muslims themselves are evenly split between Sunnis and Shias. That means that Shiite Hezbollah's power within the country is far greater than would be expected from the size of the Shiite population. Also, much of the world, including the United States, designates Hezbollah a terror group. How did a relatively small group of terrorists gain so much control over Lebanon's government? Iran. Iran helped found Hezbollah and provides the group's primary funding. That's yet another reason why the U.S.-led Iran nuclear deal continues to be such a disaster. It killed the sanctions that were holding down Iran's oil income. Now, Iran is flush with cash, and they use it to generate increasing levels of violence in the Middle East and elsewhere. Saudi Arabia sees Hezbollah's minority status in Lebanon as something they can exploit. Iran used the Syrian civil war to extend its power through Syria and Lebanon all the way to the Mediterranean. But Lebanon is not a natural ally of Iran. The Saudis hope that by accusing the nation of Lebanon of committing an act of war, they can fan the sectarian conflict in Lebanon. That may weaken Iran's grip on the nation and the region. They had long supported Saad Hariri in Lebanon, but he lost favor with the Saudis when he failed to confront and stop Hezbollah. In fact, he made them part of the government. Unnamed sources told Reuters that the Saudis forced Hariri to resign. U.S. Secretary of State Rex Tillerson said he was assured that Hariri is free to come and go as he pleases. Tillerson doesn't seem to take seriously the Prime Minister's claim of a threat on his life. He urged Hariri to return to Lebanon. The Saudis seem to be setting the stage for a possible intervention in Lebanon. If that happens, the region could explode. People in Lebanon already see war on the horizon. A barber living outside Beirut told The Guardian, "This one's different. It could lead to every valley and mountaintop, and if it starts, it may not stop." The human suffering caused by the Syrian civil war was unexpected and has been surprising. It has changed the character of the Middle East and of Europe, but it may have been just the beginning.